Alright folks, welcome back to another Ladder Legends replay analysis, this time with the Ladder Legends Voltarc, who is also known as Chadderz. Chadderz is one of the co-owners of Ladder Legends, so we're going to take a look at his game now and sort of see where we can improve. So as usual, we'll read kind of what they said and go over it. I would like you to go over Late Game TVZ for me if you can. I did win, but also I would like to know what I did right and where I could have been better. So let's go ahead and take a look. So we're going to go ahead and speed through as much of the early game as possible. I'll only comment on things I think are super worthy of noting. We're going to look at the late game of this Zerg versus Terran. Okay. Everything's looking fine so far. The only thing to note at this point is that once we have saturated, well, actually, as I say that, we got a few more lings. I think at this point, we really have no idea what's going on the opponent's side of the map. So we probably want to go to a slightly higher, once we've saturated kind of two bases. We can go to even, 12 to even 16 lings, just to be safe. Additionally, typically, we're going to be wanting to go to at least five, maybe even six queens in the early game. Just kind of blindly. So that's one adjustment. We do have 14 links, so that's good, but I still would like to see the 2 extra queens come in to play. We can ultimately make queens 5 and 6 out of this hatchery here, and then reserve this hatchery to mutate our lair. Typically, we want to get our lair before our Bane nest so that as soon as the Bane nest is done, we can start Bane speed. It's typically not that important to have Banelings immediately, as just queens and lings can defend most things. But when the first serious Terran push comes into play, we want Bane speed. This is one of those places where if we really, it can be tempting to try to attack units off creep. Right here, maybe it's okay to be following this medevac just to see where it goes with all the lings. However, once these units show up, we certainly don't have enough lings to overpower these, so we should just be looking to pull back and run and join back on creep. And it's just enough to know that we have to defend over here. We can come around this way, pull all the queens over here, let him step on a creep, make some more lings, let him engage our queens first, and then as he's shooting the queens, run in with the lings. Would be the most efficient way to deal with this. As it stands, we just lose all the lings for actually no units? Yeah, no units. So that just means we're going to have to make more lings to defend and be okay. Potentially take more damage. So right here, we could have already had these Banelings morphed if we just pull these things back and come here. Would have been pretty decent. Also, even without the Banelings, with this number of queens, we can form a nice little concave, and we start attacking and, using all of the transfusions, pull back the weak ones, use transfusions, then we can start to wear down his energy, and then as queens start to get into like maybe the 30 to 25% health, the lings can come in from the side and start to attack and overtake the weakened Marines and Hellbats. No Banelings necessary this early. Okay, but we get into a pretty relatively fine, and in fact, I think the one problem here that I will think is probably going to end up being maybe a bit of a theme. We know he's on 3 bases. We just cleaned up his first attack. We would love to be droning all the way to 75 at a minimum. 75 workers at a minimum. We really only go up to 70. Oh, we do get some extra. We get the 75 in there. Very nice. Okay. 75 workers at a minimum. We seems like we pretty much got there. So that's pretty nice. The one thing that we need to look at is this giant bank we have here. So we should be taking the 5th base. We should be taking, as soon as we're going Ling Bane as our mid game, which is perfectly good and actually a great idea, I think. However, once we start to hit these higher numbers, so we always want to be spending our money down to 0, which kind of first starts to go awry as we are, I think we do a very good job of here. But then as soon as we start interacting with the opponent, we start putting, a lot of effort trying to figure out how we're going to make this small amount of units defeat this much larger amount of units. What really gets hurt here is not even, so we went over how losing these units is not the best, but the bigger thing that's going to end up getting hurt is our injects and our spreading our creep. Oh, sorry, injects, well, yeah, creep spread too, but the main point, the bigger point is going to be spinning the larva, hitting injects, and not getting supply blocked. That's going to start, as we can see here, we start to have some amount of larva, but also we could start to take the 4th base. We could start to make extra queens here. There's lots of things we can spend this money on. Probably right now, I would like to see at least one more queen. Spin the larva in priority. Spin larva, one more queen, and then a 4th base would be where I'd want to see this money go. Upgrade as well. Probably start upgrade as soon as we get to 100 gas. The other thing we could do, so after we take so really spin larva, upgrade, queens, 4th base, gases, extra gases. This is our order of priority for the money right now. Things we want to see. And I could be argued with queens taking precedence over the upgrade, actually. Because we notice that he has no upgrade that we really need to keep up with. So probably queens are actually better. But our money kind of goes high here. We unfortunately get we just spend the larva on a couple of lings. Those are the 2 larvae I talked about. But then we don't go back and we get extra 6 larvae. We don't spin that larva now. So it takes us a little while to spin that larva. We do spend it here. But we're still missing out on the base. We're still missing out on extra queens and the upgrades. And we're quickly approaching a supply block. So actually, I will say the larva spinning is kind of okay here. But yes, here's an issue. So now that we have pulled all queens to the front, notice that there's not going to be any injects on this hatchery here. So the first thing is before we pull this queen away, this is where having extra queens coming in, if we kind of feel like it'd be nice to just leave a queen in the back and not feel like we needed to deal with this. So just having more queens, 6 queens in total, would be helpful because then we would feel less pressed to pull this queen away. However, if we absolutely must pull it away, probably what I would do here, so we need to make sure we inject before we leave. It's a tough one. It's a tough situation. So we do absolutely feel like we must pull it away to help defend. That's fine. I think what we want to make sure we do is acknowledge that we're going to be missing an inject cycle here and preemptively start extra queens to spend the money. Make sure we start overlords so we don't get supply blocks. So we have, so queens first, then a 4th, and then we should make an overlord or 2. And then as soon as this whole nasty business with Hellbats and the Marines are all said and done, we need to make sure that we throw an inject on this base, throw an inject on this base, and I would even take the queen that is made from this base and walk it up here in order to deliver an inject here as quickly as possible. So the queens in the front can inject, and the queen that it makes here walks back up here and becomes the inject queen for this for this lair. But yeah, so what we are in, sometimes we are going to miss injects because we have to deal with issues. And what we want to do is we want to think about how is that going to affect our money? How can we account for that? And what's the best way to, deal with the issue, but then get right back at it. So right here, this is cleaned up. We should be injecting immediately, inject, and then injecting immediately. That should be the next action here as soon as this is cleaned up. As soon as we know this is going to be cleaned up, we send these workers back. The next action should be injects. Let's see what we actually do. 1 inject. Is it 2? I think we do 3 injects. It was pretty good. That's pretty good. It would be even better if we had the queens already started. So we actually do everything that I mentioned, but we do it kind of after the situation has happened. And so we start some overlords after the situation has resolved. We start some queens after the situation has resolved. When we do the injects, this point you can't really do earlier, so that's fine. And we did have a 4th base taken. So we did all the things that I mentioned. It seems like the only one that we did before the situation resolved was take the 4th base, which is pretty important, but maybe not as important as... it's hard to say. This might be the most important thing to have gotten done, but definitely the next 2 most important things are start queens, start overlords. So, okay, let's keep going. Probably the overlords. Queens and then overlords, I would say, for sure, because we know we're going to lose some. We know we're going to lose some supply potentially here, so that's fine. So the queens will help us replace that supply by making sure we keep injects going. But then the overlords help us replace the supply by making sure we can spin the larva afterwards and injects, and we don't get supply blocked like we are here. What does that overlord die from? Oh, it's this overlord here. Okay, I see. That's fine. Okay. So yeah, definitely in this situation, don't hate the drones, but want some overlords, want the queens. Okay, I have beat that dead horse. I will move on. Still looking for upgrades. We're starting to get back in our rhythm, but notice that even though we're back in our rhythm, okay, so this is the point I was really looking for, is when we get back in our rhythm, why does our money start floating? And at this point, it does seem to be a larva spinning issue. So we start to, and okay, great. This makes sense. So we're kind of getting back, after we deal with this, we're kind of getting back on track. We're getting our macro under control. And then we decide to be aggressive here. And downtime, we spend some larva. It's good. Are we hitting injects? The injects seem to be good right now. We're moving around here. Larva needs to be spent. What are we doing? We're injecting again. We're over-injecting. Interesting. Okay. So we need to be itchy. Between everything we do, moving units around should be like... how to put this? You want to set up a nice inject cycle so that like you can hit injects in like a second, all 3. So ideally, once we have enough queens that we have enough for creep spreading, we can reserve some queens and put them in the back, put them on a secondary hotkey, so you can select the queens and inject, inject, inject all in a row. 3, right? 1, 2, 3. Select queen hotkey, camera hotkey 1, inject camera hotkey 2, inject camera hotkey 3, inject. Right now, so that way you could move your units around, and as a macro task, you're normally spending larva, but every 30 seconds, instead of spending larva, you hit your injects. Okay. Here, unfortunately, what we're doing is we're kind of, because we're relying on box injecting, our injects take a lot slower, so we are spending larva in between, so we're making units. We're waiting for base supply blocked. We're moving around. This is fine. We have become unsupply blocked. We spend larva. Perfect. Love it. Great. Move around. Okay. The thing is, now we need to do one of 2 things. Really, one of 3 things. But the third thing is the least important for you right now. It will become important at some point. The third thing is spread creep. But right now, in between moving, we just spent larva. We either need to inject, and if we inject, we should not really inject 1 hatchery. We should inject all 3. So we have to think to ourselves, has it been 30 seconds since we last injected? And if we don't really think it, we kind of have to build the feeling for it. So one way you can practice is going into a unit tester and building stuff and clicking it and moving it around and then like all you're thinking about is moving your units around and building stuff, and then every 30 seconds doing the inject hockey cycle that I just talked about, and trying to get it to where it's ingrained. So is it been 30 seconds? Then maybe that's your macro action. But if it's not, then we just spin larva again. And here, you would probably spin larva and nothing would happen, right? And that's fine. We can leave that be. But we should try, because we don't want to like be out of the habit. Like we don't know when we're going to get the larva precisely, so we need to always spin. I think that's what happens here. So that's perfect. Great. This is good. This is very, very good. Okay. We try to spin larva. So now we go, the thing is here, we kind of missed an opportunity. We could do some sort of movement here. So actually what we could have done here is we tried to spin larva, couldn't do it. We could do another movement here, maybe peel a link off here in order to like leave it here and stay to make sure he wasn't taking a base, right? Because we tried to spin larva, couldn't do it. Could click a thing, peel it off. And we know that we just tried to spin larva, couldn't do it. We know that we're not ready to inject yet. This is where we could start to maybe try to spread our crew terms. Actually, all our crew's pretty spread too. So ultimately, we're actually doing really hot right here. So we're doing really hot. Inject, inject, inject. Okay, good, good, good. But again, notice that we're selecting each queen. I'd love to see that on just a cycle instead. Okay, so everything looks fine here. Okay, now what do? We're over-injecting, not a problem. We're fixing saturation. Okay, I'm going to say this is the third thing you can do. The fourth thing you should do is probably creep spread. So here, we're like sort of like pairing macro tasks together. So we need to go back and do a micro task, something on the other side of the map. And then we need to go back and do a macro task. Or rather, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. Okay, actually, I kind of take it back. I'm kind of okay with doing this, but in between doing this, we need to be spinning larva. So actually moving units around is kind of a macro task, if you will. I mean, it takes effort to do. You got to like click on units, you got to click on other units, you got to move them around. But so you should do that, and in between doing that, you got to spin the larva. So this is probably where we start to, and you notice we're starting to float some money. And even if we spend the larva, we will not have spent the money at this point. This is the point to start adding in a fifth base. And then we try to, after we, so we send these units, spend larva, realize we still have money, take a fifth base with one of those drones. Try to spend larva, realize we still have money, take a natural hatch, right? Then we can flip back to whatever we flip back, and like, again, we need to spin larva. Right here, honestly, this is where like you're gonna have to have your OCD away. I would right now, you see that you have a drone with your army, just leave it. It's not that important. One drone is not gonna make or change stuff. Spinning this larva will, not getting this upgrade started will, not spreading creep will definitely be a thing which will impact the outcome of the game. One drone with your army won't. So I suspect, we don't notice, that's fine. Okay, this is where we're not really attending to the spinning larva as well as we should be. It's not come up, it needs to come up with the frequency of things you do, and like we're trying to attack, and while we're trying to attack, we're also spreading the drone off, trying to deal with it, and then we sort of, okay, so here, this is maybe okay, but during this time, this is where we have not spent larva for a very long time. We haven't looked at our money and realized that we need to grab a fifth base. We haven't looked at our money and realized we need to grab a natural. We have not looked at our money ratio and realized that we need extra. So once we get 3 base saturation, we're definitely going to want extra gas. This is the point we want to have more gas coming in. We want to start before upgrades, things like this. A good rule of thumb is by the time your layer finishes, you probably want to have at least 2 extra gases running. I don't know if that's true in ZVZ and ZVP. I'm not sure if that's true in ZVT. I'll have to look at one of my games. But either way, at this point, looking at this for sure, when you have 3 base saturation, you can start adding in extra gases. And definitely when you look up here and you see this, you know you want to add extra gases. So all that stuff is stuff that needs to be attended to. This attack goes fine, but it's taking our attention away from the things that are important over here. Okay, let's keep going.
Queen's ready. Here comes a new challenger. You have a new.
Okay, we see the base. That's fine. The persistent issues we've partially solved some. We gotten some more gas. Still haven't gotten a fifth. Still haven't gotten a macro base. I think our injects are actually quite good. Let me just go ahead. Yeah, every time I look, the injects are actually going quite well. So I think the inject portion, the fourth base needs to get added then at some point. Once we get the fourth base online, that needs to start getting injected as well. So like getting back and injecting is not really seem to be a problem. It's mostly just making sure that we're constantly spending. And then we're realizing when we don't have enough production structures, we don't have enough gas, number one. That'd be helpful because then we can start to get double upgrades. We can start to get a hydrogen. These would all help us spend our minerals as well, as it would just mean we have less minerals because we start to have mining on gas as well as we'd be able to spend our stuff more efficiently. But then two, we could also have been adding in these extra bases. So ultimately, like a lot of the fundamentals here are quite some of them are quite good, and some of them are almost so close to being where they need to be in order for you to level up. The larva spending, the taking the gases, the realizing where our bank is, the making sure that we're putting the effort in between every army movement, every attack, we're putting the effort into spending larva, making sure the inject cycles are done on time. That part seems to be good. Making sure that our balancing of our gas and our minerals is good. That part is like took us a while to catch on to the fact we needed gases. And making sure that we have enough production facilities, right? So we need a fifth and we need a fourth. Those parts need to become macro tasks that we do. That they need to be woven in between these army movements, right? And so the faster we can come up with like, oh, look at this. Okay, I need a fifth base and I need a macro hatch, and that can be instantaneous. Then the more micro stuff we can do. Otherwise, we might need to pull back a bit, come back, and then sort of do a bit more of what I was talking about before, which is treating our macro tasks as sort of micro tasks, and do a micro macro task, and then look and see, okay, what macro task do I need to do, if that makes sense. Okay. So this all leads us to be floating a bunch of money at this point. We're kind of just way under where we could be. We could be outstripping this guy quite handily, up 20, 30 supply. Instead, we're just doing kind of equal with him, which is then causing us to take a little bit of damage. We're having to drone even more. You know, we lost just a few drones because we don't have enough units to be in position. This is where to having enough units, so all of our units, instead of attacking and being here, they could be, you know, we could have all of our units with, you know, all these things, turn a few into a couple of Banes. They could be in position here, expecting an attack to come. Why do we expect an attack to come here? Well, actually, we should expect an attack to come both places, right? But we have a lot of good vision in front of this base. And so if we have a limited amount of units, we want to think, where should our units be in order, like, where do we have the least amount of vision? It's sort of here, and it's here, right? So we could try to cover down by sending like one Ling here, patrolling it, and then keep the rest of the units here. And then as we start to build more units, we want to have two hotkeys, one with the units here, stay here. All the units we're building can maybe go here. And then we're kind of expecting him to attack both places at once and maybe even threaten this place. But we really only have enough units to defend one place right now. So we want to look at where our vision is and make sure the units are there to defend, so we don't take damage. And so we should be really, what we should be thinking is we should be focusing on, oh, I need to defend this place and this place, but I have too much money to do that. I need to focus all of my efforts on having one army in position with banelings to defend one place, put that on a new hotkey, and then somehow find a way to get my money down, so we could maybe then take all of our queens off of their queen chicken hotkey, put them on a regular hotkey, put them here, make new queens. That would like, so therefore we have, and then like all the reinforcements come here. So we have queens for the defense now, new queens being made, and you know, ultimately long-term plan, actual army getting made to put here. This would be a good place for our mental headspace to be going in this. Okay, let's get to more of the late game. I think that kind of encapsulates Zerg mid game. And then all of that just, you need to be pushing creep while you do it.
You have a new queen.
There, get the hive out.
Mineral field.
Get the Hydralistin out. This is fine. A couple of infestors are fine. One thing that I'll note is we probably could have got the Hydralistin quite a bit faster. If we got our gases faster, which would have allowed us to spend our money more effectively, would have solved a lot of the problems about not being able to spend the money quite a bit easily, handily. This is all good, but we're missing a 5th base. This should probably be the 5th base you try to take, as it's going to be the most centrally located, easily defendable, because we have creep all over. So it's okay to take like 2 bases at the same time when you're taking the 5th, potentially. But I would take this one for sure, and then definitely try to get it saturated. So even now we're at a lower drone count than we need to be. Once we know that he's going for a 4th base, which we do know because we saw it, I believe. Maybe we haven't, but he's clearly going for like that super macro style. Now to be competitive, we need to remain at 90 drones. So this is all pretty good here. The one thing that I'll say is that we still need to have a separate army. So we need to have, oh, okay, we do. It's over here. Okay, I'm okay with it. It's a little bit small until we actually have. So the thing is, we start kind of doing this multi-prong where we're aggressive with the multi-prong and going off creep. We start doing it when we have 46 Zerglings in production. We probably want to wait until these 46 things are out of production, because really our effective combat fighting power is smaller than it really should be. Another thing to note is whenever we see Widow Mines, we need to make sure that we have Overseers and Overseer speed with all of our units, because we never want these to be able to fire more than once. And it seems like all these Widow Mines are going to fire more than once. So Overseers with all of our groups of armies. And let's not actually start fighting, not start this push until we have kind of all the lings out. We're at 200 supply. That also gives us more time to hit our injects and make sure that. So the first 3 bases, super well injected, super love it. This 4th base needs to get some of that love as well. And then we need to get a 5th base down. And we need to have drones for the 5th base. The trades over here are completely fine if we have a 5th base and we have 95 drones. And everything here is pretty much okay. And yes, we can sort of go in until we have Lingbane all dies, then we can back off. Here we probably want to back off at this point. Truly, the little that we got here is probably not worth the risk of losing these Hydra Force, which is the backbone. And then if we pull out, we don't have to think quite so deeply about it. We can start to defend these sorts of drops better as well. And so now we're sort of down to 60 workers. This is before we were at a good amount. Now we're at 74. This is not quite like if no units had died, this would be good enough. But at this point, we're kind of starting to be far under the drone count that we want to be. 80 even now is too low. And probably the biggest issue is we continue to not have a 5th base. So this game is going extremely well for us, except for the fact that we don't have a 5th base. And we don't have drones to go in the 5th base. So this is the fun, and then also, again, as we get to this section of the game, our army should never be in 1. We had it in 2 earlier. We need to get it back into 2. And even if it's just a small amount of Lingbane with like a Hydra or 2 up here, or like an Infestor to like catch stray Medivacs, like we want to make sure we're in position to do that. And we also want to make sure that we're always pushing. We killed active tumors here. We need to get active tumors back down and keep the expansion, keep growing. Everything here is fine. We just don't want to be moving as a blob here. Need a little group of, we need side armies here. And the side armies could be then, as soon as you steps on creep here, the side armies should be large enough to deal with 2 medevacs worth of stuff. That's like a little rule. At a minimum, you should always assume there's going to be like 2 medevacs worth of stuff. However, when you see how much stuff is there, you can split off more stuff to deal if you need to. Technically, you could split off less, but if you have a minimum of 2 medevacs, it's like 20 lings, like 8 banes, and like a Hydra and like an Investor. It's a very small amount of supply, so you can always kind of just keep it there. And then that would allow us to establish this 6th space now. We do have the 5th up over here. But at this point, we really want a 6th base and a 7th base. And we want to have that 95 drone count, some 90, 95 drone count. So we're starting to get to the point where like we actually do need this 6th base. And what we don't want is we do see this, we want to deal with this, but we don't want our entire army to be over here dealing with this, because what if he then takes another 2 medevacs and drops here? Now all of a sudden he's kicked us off this 6th base here, he's kicked us off the 5th base here, and we have to run all the way over here. And if we're running all the way over here, then he can come back here with these and maybe kill this base again. And all of a sudden this game, which is looking really good for us, starts to look not so good for us. So always make sure that we are splitting off just enough to deal. And if we don't know how much it is, if we're blind, we can start with like the idea it'll be 2 medevacs worth, and then adjust accordingly. In fact, he does this. He does kind of move out here. And luckily, he gets the idea to move out just slow enough that we do get to clean this up and move the army back. But if he gets on this a little faster, it could be rough for us. Other than that, the posturing looks good. Like a town on 5 bases is not too big of a deal, but that is, again, provided that we have 90 drones worth of mining efficiently. We want every second that goes by to be a good second for us. If you'll notice, in like the 15-minute realm, like we're actually maybe even a little behind here because we're sort of lower in workers. But I think at some point we get back up to the worker count and we start trading with him well. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, we're trading with him well. Maybe I gaslit myself and it was never as good of a situation as I thought. Yeah, that might be the case. Yeah, we're actually a little behind here because we've been trading inefficiently, which is this is as intended. This is the way the matchup's supposed to work. But the compensation for that is we're supposed to be mining with a lot more on more bases at this time. So our bank should be bigger than this Terran bank. And the fact that it's smaller means that Terran is slightly winning. Let's see how... I think the problem the Terran's going to have is that they're not doing a good job. They kind of have stuck themselves on 5 bases, and they have not done a good job of coming out here and securing this base. You know, putting planetaries and sensor towers and, you know, like they did it. So the issue that your opponent is sort of, you've sort of in not a great spot right now, but your opponent's self-defeating by not knowing how to get either one of these corner bases, even though he has, you know, 8K minerals to make it happen. Start to creep his influence out this way, or creep his influence over this way. That's what he needs to do, and he just can't quite make it happen. He's trying to go all in one go. Or he's very slow about it. But just imagine that instead of like 8K, he just has like 5K and 30 more command centers. Okay, so maybe it wouldn't be 30 command centers, maybe it'd be like 15 more planetary fortresses. 10 planetary fortresses, or maybe 6 planetary fortresses and 9 orbitals. All of a sudden this game doesn't feel too comfortable. But this is good. Deny the base. One thing I'd like to see more of, though, is the fungals are fine. The entry fungal's good. But I need to see a microbial now, maybe even a second microbial. We want to make sure that our ultras are invulnerable here. And they are invulnerable. And also in the back line, we want to make sure that our Hydra's count doesn't get reset. He kills an initial amount of ultras, maybe. Maybe he doesn't even have enough on everything to kill. And then after that, nothing else here should die because he's in full retreat, running away. This is also, when he starts to have all these ghosts, we typically want to have more of a higher Baneling count to force the ghost to run away and not get any of their snipes off. But really what we come in is we'd ideally have quite a bit of Lings and Banes. We could have some Ultralisks, some Hydras. Probably I tend to go either Ultras or Hydras because the counter to them is the same, it's Ghosts. The Ling Bane wards the Ghosts away, then my crew wheel comes in, allows the Hydras to pick off the Liberators. We then pull back, remax, and do it again. Just to be, we win this fight, but it'd be nice to be more efficient, lose less Ultras while we do it. Other than that, this is the right idea. And he's not really controlling his army well enough, nor has he fortified the position well enough. He's sort of leapfrogged out of here really fast, and that's kind of given us an opportunity. He's also not playing on this side of the map at all, which would have made the game quite a bit more difficult for us if he was. So because of this, we're starting to eke back in, and he's starting to run dry on his early bases. We still have all these new bases, which are mining completely fine. So we're starting to get a decent moment back in this game. He doesn't really have enough ghosts. He should have more ghosts than this at this point. And again, he should have more buildings. Probably more, a couple more tanks. Like less Marines and Marauders, more tanks is the big thing he's missing. More tanks, more ghosts. If we allow him to mine this base and we don't mine this base, it's going to be rough. And he's going to be the big problem is I don't even think he has. Yeah, again, imagine he's not even using all his mules, but like he should be able to mine this base out. Now that he's here, he should be able to get the minerals like almost instantly. So he should be dropping even more mules here, which also again goes back to he could probably have more command centers, especially if he packs them in more tightly, more orbitals. But he should be just mealing the crap out of this base and mining it like instantly. Good cleanups on the ghosts. Making just a spine and a spore to stop this like in key places like out here, 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 here. You know, this is typically enough. And also, again, having a side army of just Zerglings, enough to deal with like a medevac. With like an overseer also allows you to like quickly see where it is and have them respond. Much too low of a worker count at this point, because we still need to mine out, these two bases. So these two bases need to be fully saturated at a minimum, and then kind of these bases we can sort of leave for later because we're planning to like focus on them later. So maybe it's not too low of a worker count now. We would have preferred it to be much higher for a much longer time, and then we could start to lower to this artificially by creating spore crawlers and prepping for a broodlord switch. This push basically kills him, but it's a little bit because we have the broodlords out. It is a little bit, if he gets wind of this and he starts making Vikings right now, which is like a lot faster than he is, then it can get a little dicey, which is why we need spellcaster support and spore support, and we need to go a little bit more crazy. He also could just give this area up and start attacking this area, which would significantly hamper our mining. But honestly, I guess this is probably a good moment because essentially we've decided to let him have this base at this point. So he's going to have a while, but we've mostly mined this out. So essentially, if he comes and fights here, we can just get rid of this. So actually, the timing of the broodlords I don't hate, but we don't need to be aggressive with them. And we really should be making sure that we have creep kind of all up in here. We have spore crawlers. We have our spellcasters, so our vipers and our infestors. And at this point, we can start bringing queen. We don't need to care about injection. We can put all our queens and bring our queens forward to be transfusing, helping push creep. And then we want to just start slowly sieging. Rather than just going for this yellow push. The yellow push works this time, but I would call it, and then if we're going to do this yellow push, there's some microbials play here, so we want to make sure we get our microbial going. Ooh, I mean, it works, but just barely. Just barely. So it's good. And I like the Ling follow-up too. 170 Ling's great play here. This is a great momentum play. But I will note that if he stabilizes, we're in trouble, right? So kind of an aggressive option, kind of suits your personality. Keep doing it, but if they start losing while you do this play and you're saying, how do I make this happen? Then play slower. You had the judgment that you could do this, so it's good this game, but it won't always be good. So keep that in mind. And yeah, this is fine. You don't need to go after his last mining base if you can get into his production, which you can here. Again, as long as we have this base still mining, we have 3 bases still mining, we don't technically have to go in here. So possible that it's best to just pull back, get that creep spreading, and make sure that we lock down this portion of the map, because this portion of the map is going to run out of minerals much faster than this portion of the map. All right, but overall, good game. Good ideas, good unit compositions, mostly good movement. I think if I was to summarize the things that need to be worked on, it would be making sure that we get our bank spent early, so that we don't ever have moments of weakness where we could get killed. Making sure that we get up to and maintain in the early to mid late game. Maintain that 90 drone economy with a bunch of bases. Mine that one section of the map faster, and then make sure that you start mining, this section of the map as fast as possible. And then understand, whenever you control more of the resources, so that you can push if you want to, but never feel the need to push necessarily, or don't feel the need to push that quickly. You can slowly siege with Blue Lords and move forward, so you don't ever lose them, rather than having to kind of go all in with them.